Hi there guys, so in this video we're gonna be taking a look at how to create a block in 2023 and basically how to get started creating block plugins and how to create multiple blocks in the same plugin, and then a few initial steps to quickly produce a block with some dynamic data and so you can also release these plugins directly to the WordPress plugins repository. So let's get started. So the first things first, we're going to be using the Create Block Scaffold by WordPress team to initialize the plugin. What I have right now here is development environment setup, and then so the basic requirements we'll need here is a Node installation done and a PHP setup for your WordPress site, which is basic. I suppose you are already aware of that and set up. Again, so let's get into that. I have VS Code open here along with my plugins directory in here. I'm in the plugins directory of my WordPress site, and then in here type npx and WordPress create block and then the name of your plugin. So let's call it demo plugin. Sorry, there's the phone already. Demo block. Let's just call it demo blocks, and now you'll see it will automatically create a plugin for us with the basic block setup. Okay, so it's done now. As you can see here, I've just entering the size of the terminal. Done WordPress plugin demo blocks bootstrap in the demo blocks directory. You can run several commands inside and can starts the build for development, and all these commands to even zip the plugin for release. So it's pretty handy. So without wasting further time, let's get into it. Let's just cd into our demo blocks folder, and then let's clear the terminal, clear the sides a bit, and then let's not one stop. Let's first take a look into it. Here's our plugin. As you can see, it's very basic. It first hooks into the init function and then registers the block type using the block type function or build of this block scripts on these block scripts in the source directory, and these get output in the build folder. So let's take a look in the block.json file. This is what is responsible for creating the block, holding the configuration for the block. And then in the index.js file, we have the registered block type again in the client side, which is responsible for the handling the edit function for the editor, and then the save function, which is responsible for rendering the block in the front end. So let's take a look. For that, let's just hit run start, because we want it to compile all the files if not already. So as you can see, done. Let's refresh our plugins page and hit activate demo blocks. Let's go to our editor, and then let's find the block. Should be demo blocks. You can see here demo blocks. Here it is. Demo blocks. It doesn't have anything right now. It's just bare bones. It has this text here, and then when we update it, and let's take a look at the front end. Okay, let's take a look at front end. As you can see, it's also the same at the front end. Okay, so here's the code, and if we take a look at this edit function, you can see demo blocks look on the editor, and it's the very same. Okay, so this was the first step to get started, and then you have all these methods in the package.json script you can see to just keep building forward after this blocks. But this is only one block. What if you want to build multiple blocks? So the way to do that is, let's first cut out of this script. And then let's create a folder. We'll call it first block. And then put all these files in the first block directory. So now we have first block, and we'll also need to copy, and then let's just duplicate the same thing here, and then let's call it second block. We'll just rename a few things in the block JSON file. We'll call it demo block. Instead of demo blocks, we'll call it second block, and the title will be second block. Text domain can stay the same because it's on the plugin level, and we'll call this one first block so that it stays consistent. And first block, let's keep everything as is so that not pretty much. And let's get into our demo blocks.php, where we register the blocks in the server side. As you can see, this is the main plugin file. We'll also need to change a few things here. Let's create an array. We'll call it blocks, and then in this array we'll keep the keys of the folder names, such as first block and then second block. Now let's wrap our register block type in a for each loop, and then we'll loop over our blocks. Let's get rid of this, and then call it block. We have put this in the for each block, and then what we can do is tap this in double quotes, build. Now, as you saw, we were outputting everything in this build folder, but now when we have multiple blocks, what the WP scripts will do is each block will get outputted in the build folder separately. So what we just want to do is add a backslash again, and then in curly braces, just say block from up for each loop, and then done. Now if we run npm run start, we will see both get outputted here. So you can see first block and second block, and then let's remove this one because this is gonna throw an error, and let's refresh it anyways. Oh, it didn't. Strange enough. Let's check here. Okay, first block, that is first block, and then second block. Okay, second block is not available for some reason. Let me just take a look. Block JSON, second block. When we say that, and we refresh the page, let's see what happens. Okay. As you can see here are first and second block, so there was something there. Anyway, so the things we changed here right now is only changed a few things. We changed a bit of a description, and then we adapted our editor styles, and then the front end styles for the updated names, etc. Such as we just changed this to second block and then first block in this one. So without wasting time in the second block, let's focus on our first block. Now you know how to create multiple blocks using the same WP scripts. So let's get into our first block, and let's look at how this edit method can be modified to make the block your own and then do something with it. So the initial steps would be to know what all these things are right now, and we can see here WordPress I18N. This is the internationalization library, and this fetches this are underscore function to internationalize the text, the strings, such as you can see here, and this will output translatable file which you can then register in the WordPress plugin to translate your plugins. There's another story, and then we'll do that in another video. But the first things first, and that is use block props, which is being imported here from the block editor library. So this library has many more features for the block editor, hooks basically, and components that you can import and then use them. So this Google block props is what gives this such as this parent element its classes and everything, and that is what is responsible for adding all the server-side data, whatever comes from it, to this block. Let's take a look into our save function. The save function has almost the same things. We again use the use block props, but with the save function, so that it knows that we want the renderer props. So let's quickly create a basic dynamic block, because this is really bare bones, and then you don't just want to have a demo blocks or you would want to do something with it, right? So what we have here is first block, and it should be here. Let's remove all these add. Okay, let's refresh the page. That is the front end file, and then here it is the backend. Okay, so the styles. Let's get into our edit function, and then let's do something with it. So suppose this is a block where you want to render some data from an API, and then make users select something and then show that data in the editor as well as in the front end. So what we can do is begin with some changes here in our create blocks init file, because we want to get that data in the client side of the editor. To do that, what we can do is let's register a function here and hook into it. Let's hook into admin and queue script. Then let's give our hook demo blocks, demo underscore blocks underscore scripts. Now let's register our function demo blocks script. Now what we want to do is we want to register a local line script that hooks into the first block or whichever block you want to output the data in, get the data in basically. So we'll have a handle that will be the handle of the block, and then let's say generally the handles are in the block JSON file. When you look at it, the name, create block, and then first block, and then editor script. So such as there won't be this backslash, and then it will be it's called slash, not backslash. It will be just like create hyphen block and then hyphen first block editor script. So let's just copy as it is, and then in our handle paste it. Okay, sorry, it was outside. Let's paste it, and then editor script. Let me remove that slash, and then you add hyphen. We'll also want to have the data, which is what we want to output at the front end. For now, let's output an empty array, and not an empty array, but it won't show anything. Let's call it hello, and then let's use our localize script function. This is the function we'd want to use if you want to hook into an already available script hook, or So let's use the same handle we have available over above, and this will be the object name by which the data will be available in the in your scripts. So we call it demo block data. Demo blocks data, and then this will be your data. Let's call it data and then hit save. Let's hope this works. If not, we'll have to debug it. We can simply go into our console and check for the demo blocks. Okay, as you can see, it's available, so it works. Demo blocks, we just wanted to do like this. Okay, so you can see this is being says your site doesn't support include support for create code demo blocks class, because this was the earlier code from the initial files. We changed them. So generally what happens in the editor is it breaks if the data changes. Okay, so let's remove unsupported and then okay, so this is really simple data. What we want to do here is get some data from an API and then show that data dynamically using an user input into the front end as well as the editor. So let's get some data first from let's get a complete JSON placeholders, and then we'll get the users data. So this has 10 users, as you can see here. This is the raw JSON file of it. And then let's copy this data. Again, as you can see, we are in the main plugin file. So this is server side. So we'll use the PHP code here. We'll call it, okay, let's overwrite our link down, and then we'll use WP remote get. This is another function we use to fetch data from APIs. Okay, let's do that. And then let's not do the response here, because that's what it is, a response from the API. Now we'll get the data variable, the more body. This is a function used to retrieve the body of the response. So let's do that. And then in the data, we'll just decode the JSON which we got from the API. That is generally the steps you do when you're getting or fetching data from an API, because that's generally encoded in JSON. So let me just do data, and then we have the data here. But as you'd see here, this will what this will do is to fetch the API over and over again. So what we want to do is use a transient here. So I've already covered in a video what transients are in WordPress. You can watch the video, I'll link it below. Let me just quickly wrap it over in an transient, set transient, and I'll call it demo block, and then we'll wrap it for 24 hours. Sorry, let's do 7 days a week. So we'll call it 7 asterisk day in seconds. So this will expire in 7 days and then loop over the API again, but this is not properly implemented yet. So let's wrap this over. Sorry, let's set the data here, and then we'll get transient. There it goes, the same demo block key, and then now we'll wrap this over in if conditional. If not data, then we loop over this thing, our API request, and then fetch the data again. As you can see, it's here. Okay, so we have the data. Now the transient is implemented, and the API won't be called over and over again on each page load. Okay, so now if we were to refresh our editor, we'll have the array demo block. As you can see, it has 10 objects in it, all the users basically. So let's first get our block here and then hit update. And then let's take a look at the front end. And then what we have here is bare bones. It just says the same thing over and over again and the editor in the front end. And we don't have anything in the block settings or anything to edit it. So we'll add that as well. So let's get the data in our edit file here. Let's change this into, we can keep the paragraph, but for standards we'll call it div. We'll change the element to div, and then we'll also want to make sure that we change in the save method, but then we can do that later on. So let's focus on the edit function for now, and then let's create our block settings here. So these settings will appear here. So for that, you need to import inspector controls. So inspector controls are available from, as far as I know, in the block editor. Yeah, in the block editor. So let's do inspector controls, and in that we want the panel body. So these panel body, etc., are components basically, and these will be available from WordPress components. We'll have to install it because it doesn't come already in the WP scripts scaffold. So what we want to do is npm install, or you can just say I, and WordPress at WordPress / components. Okay, so the components library is installed. We can just import it here. Let's import our panel body for the inspector, and then we'll do that from at WordPress. At WordPress components. Let's make sure that it's available there. Panel body, yes it is. Panel body, and what we want to do is put here panel body, and then we'll want to give it title. We'll say block settings, or let's call it block selector or something, anything you want of it. It doesn't matter. Anyways, so the second thing we'll want is a select control. So all these blocks, I don't know already, and I don't remember them specifically. See, I have all these tabs open here. I have already logged into them because they are available from WordPress. This is the package, the inspector controls, is the repository of WordPress Gutenberg, and then all these are very well documented so that you can look into it and then use them as you want. But then some of these may get outdated over time, so you want to look over. And then the block attribute, so we'll get into D. We have the block editor library, such as here, which we just saw how we imported inspector controls from it and used block props for the classes, etc. for the block. So all this is well documented here in the WordPress docs. I'll link it below in the video, so you can take a look as well. And let's look at the select control. I think select control, you can look into this. This is the Storybook.io playground where you can look into all the different components available from WordPress components. What we want to do is we want to use select control, this one. So let's just do that, and you can also take a look at the Gutenberg package inspector control here. So you can see here inspector control, select control, toggle control, text control, etc. So let's copy this. Let's copy this whole thing instead of writing it. I'll just explain it to you line by line. So we are first importing the select control, and it's a single wrap, and then we have the label for the control. We'll just call it a select user, because that's what we are doing. We are importing the users, and then we want a block which selects where we can select a user, and then that data gets outputted for that user and the front end and the editor itself. Yeah. So the value will be what you normally what you want to use here is an attribute. We'll look into that in a bit. So let's ignore all this right now. So the value will be what you have already set, and the options. So the options available and the on change function will basically listen for the changes, and then where it will save the data. So now let's implement this, because this won't work by itself. And then what we want to do is we want to add some attributes. So the attributes are a way to save data, are the only way. Right now, it's the only way to save data in the blocks. So what we want to do is say attributes here, and then in curly braces, you would want to write down all the attributes you want to add. So in this one, let's call it selected user, and then with curly braces, you want to add type, what type of attribute this is. You can have all these types. So we'll call it string, because we want to save a string here. So we'll go get back to our edit function, and then these attributes are available via attributes and then set attributes method. If you're already aware of React hooks such as user state, you'd know what these are. So attributes has all the attributes data, and then set attributes is what helps in setting these attributes from the editor. So let's extract our attributes. We'll use curly braces again and attributes. We'll use destructurization. This is called destructurization. It's how does I know? Yeah, okay. So what we want here is selected user. I think that's what we called the attribute, right? When it's looking back, selected user. And then we also want to create a function which will listen to the select changes. So we'll call it onChange user, and arrow function. We'll want to get the user here, and then set attribute, and in curly braces, selected user, and then we want to set to the user that we got from the onChange hook. So we'll just apply these here in the select control, onChange user, and then selected user. Again, we don't have the values, the options correct here, because we want to have the users array which we just got from our server side, these ones which we just gave to our handle localized data. So let's take a look at front end in the editor first. Let me run the script so that it gets the files compiled. Okay, it's successful. So let's get back to our editor, and then hopefully this will work. As you can see here, it's being outputted as you'd expect. So the select user input is here, along with the options we have there right now. So what we want here right now is the options from the users array, which we already have here. So let's do that. Let's get the users. We'll call it let's do const users, and then this will be an array, and then demo blocks data. Let's loop over it directly here. In an arrow function, we'll give this, let's call it, we already have a user, so it's in the onChange, let's call it user. And then what you want to do is you want to make sure that users has this data, and then we'll graph it over with something like this, value, and then label. So we'll call the value. Let's take a look at the JSON placeholder. So the value can be the username, because username is unique always. You can see Samantha and then Carrie-Ann. So I assume it holds a certain amount of uniqueness because the name has stasis. So let's do that. let's head back to our editors, and then in the value, we'll use user dot name, and then in the label, we'll have username. Okay, so that should have it. And if you were to set users to options now, we should have users. Let's take a look. Okay, so that does it. We have, okay, so there might be some confusion. We should have value set as username and label as name. Okay, so if we refresh it now, should have the correct, as you can see, it has proper names, and then you can set it there. It won't do anything right now because we don't have anything set up here. So let's do that. So we have user selection available here, and as you can see, it is being saved as well. If we were to save it, it should get saved. But then what if we want to show it in the editor and then in the front end when the block is saved? So what we want to do is we'll create a function again called getSelectedUser, and then and then out of function, and we'll get the selected user. So let's call it selection, because selected user is already being available here. Let's not override that. Okay, so the next thing would be when we have a selection, if not selection, if we don't have a selection, we'll just output return no user is selected, and if there is, because it will only go below the if conditional if it is selected, then we'll want to return a few things. And now as you can see, I'm using this backdrops. I think that's what they're called. Backtick, sorry. In this, this is basically a string, but helps in interpolating JavaScript variables. So let's interpolate it. Hello, my name is, and then we'll use the dynamic data available from the selection. So we'll assume we have a chat. We'll assume we have selection dot such as this value. We'll have an object here, the same object as you would saw in the looping of demo blocks data. So selection dot name is what we want to display here, and then I work at as you can see here, we also have company and then name, etc. So this will also be an object, and then I work at, let's interpolate that, selection dot company dot name. So that should be a perfect example. Let's also use conditionals here so that you don't accidentally end up creating some error. Now if you were to refresh it, it won't show anything because we will also need to output it. So let's do get selected user, and then we'll say selected user, provided that. Now if we were to refresh it, let's refresh it. No user is selected because as we'd expect, we haven't saved anything yet. But even if we do, let's say selected user, see it's undefined right now because so the selection doesn't have by default the object of the user. So what we want to do is get the user object and then use that. So let's get that. What we want to do is loop over the demo blocks data and then get the user. So demo blocks data. So we already have users from the this loop here, users. So what we want to do is we just want to create the const user variable and then filter through our users list if you know how filters work, they are basically return the object or the array you want with a certain conditional. So we'll have user here, and then if user dot username, and suppose matches with the selection, then give me the user. So that should give us a single user object. Now, instead of using a filter, because that will also give us an array in the object inside an array, let's just do map, and then map over this user's object. Let's do that, users map, and then let's simply do user. Let's make it a let so that we can overwrite it. User, and then we'll just say and conditional it, because user dot username, if it matches with our selection, then we'd want to have the user set in. So the user data, so that doesn't conflict with it. User data and then user. That should do it. Now we can just say user dot username user data busoti. Okay, so that should work. Let's refresh it. Again, we didn't save anything, so no user is selected. And then if we were to say here, well, it's undefined for some reason again. Let's take a look. Users data. We have, let's console log the user here. And let's refresh the page. Let's run this, and we do have the object and username dot selection. Let's say select sheet. We value. Okay, yeah. So we only had we were only getting the username and name here in this users, so we can't have that. So let's loop over demo blocks data, and that should do it. Demo blocks data, and again, that should now work. Okay, as you can see, it works. But then if we save it here, it will work. There you go. So yeah, you can see it works. Now let's implement the same thing in the renderer so that it works here as well. Right now you can see it's only displaying the initial content. So we have this here. Let's update our save function. Again, we'll get the attributes. We'll destructurize it and get our selected user in attributes. Now let's copy a few things from here. We will copy this get selected user because we want that, and then the same function again here, or to just say yes, that. Okay, so what you'll notice here that we do have the selected user, but we don't have the demo blocks data, and we won't get it at the front end. We give by default. We don't have a hook which we can use to hook into the script this, such as we did here, use the handle of the same editor script, and then we can do that so that the block scripts get enqueued conditionally and don't load everywhere. We don't have that at the front end. So what we do here is we save the data in the attributes itself, because the save method only renders the saved data from the DB. It doesn't have a script at the front end. So what we want to do is we're going to save the data in the edit method itself. So let's hope to save this. We'll also need to create another attribute such as users. Normally you can have other methods to do the same thing, but for now let's do this, and then we'll have a type of array. That would be an array. And then in the edit method, what we want to do is we'll get the user as well. Actually, we don't need here the user. We can just use the set attributes method, and then set attributes method. In the set attributes method, we can just say not on change. We can just say set attributes. Let's just set attributes to. So again, without you don't need to set all the users. We can just get away with setting one user. So let's call it user, and then let's call it an object, because each user is an object. The whole array is the whole users is an array. So what we want to do is just get the selected user, so we know this is the selected user, and then we can just say here set attribute, and then say that user is user, or we can just get away with user like that. So yeah, that should do it on selection. Actually, let's not do it here because this is not. It should be on change, and then we can just do the same thing here, which you want. Okay, so that should do it, but then it won't do it by itself. Let's get the user in the save method, and then now we have user here. We can loop over user, and instead of looping over user, we can just say user, because we can just do that. And then user, we just use user and then user. That should do it. But if we refresh right now, you'll see that it doesn't do anything. So if it didn't reload, we'll have to update it from the editor to make it reload. Let's say shall see search. Let's refresh the editor first, because the changes should load. Okay, so yeah, we changed a few things, so that's why it's just saying that. Let's completely remove this block, because sometimes editor behaves in weird ways. Let's get the first block. We'll select something, hit update, and then when we go back here, okay, it says hello, my name is undefined. I wrote it undefined. We'll have to look into that first. The user should be there. So user just let's take a look how we are saving this on change. Okay, yeah, we just saved the user property. What we wanted to save here is the user object. So again, we did this similar mistake. Okay. So let's loop over that again here. And then in this, instead of here, let me save it here. The set attribute, or we can just keep using that and then say user data, let user data again in the same code, and then in here user data. Right, we'd also want to say user let's discard it user key for now so that it doesn't conflict, and then we'll click cheat. Okay, now let's get back to our edit function, sorry, in the editor, and then you select something else. So search, okay, like told you, add the VH in weird ways. Wants it to have this update function. Now, if we come back, it didn't work. Let's remove this and then add it back. Post block, about. No user is selected. Okay. Weirdly enough, selection is not defined. Selection is not defined, of course, yeah. Selection is not defined. Where the selection is here, get selected user. Selected user is not user, no user is selected. Perfect. Now it's done JSON 47. Oh yeah, we saw the card user. Alright, as you can see, it works. Let's update it. And here it is. So we have our fully working block with some dynamic data. I know it took some time, but we did it. We went through it. And the block editor is still very, I won't say it's that developer oriented right now. I mean, it is, but at the same time, if you're coming from a JavaScript land, you know that you're used to of the code thing, but then it's not that well in terms of changes, etc. while you're working with the editor and the front end. There are some glitches here and there, and you'd have to go through it as long as you want to work in the editor and make things for it. So yeah, that is what it is. We made a block and then we took some data from an API, we output at the front end, and we showed all the process. I'm not gonna edit most of it, all the issues I went through, so that you know the pains of being a WordPress block editor developer. So yeah, I'll see you in another video. Hope you have a good day. Thank you.